meeting for Thursday, October 15th, 2020 to start, and I'll ask staff to start the recording. I'll just go through some ground rules. As a teleconference, we need to ensure that everyone uses either handsets, earbuds, or mute buttons on their speakerphones, as otherwise background noise becomes distracting and makes the meetings difficult. To maintain timelines around subsequent meetings, everyone needs to have dialed into the meetings on time. I'll announce each agenda item and introduce staff to present the recommendation. When I ask for a question on a matter, if you have a question or comment, please indicate by stating your name. I'll record the questions, the requests for speakers, and will ask for anyone else who may have been missed once the list is exhausted. Those presenting as delegations will have 10 minutes each to speak to the application at hand, not past applications or associated applications. Staff will have a timer for 10 minutes and will give the delegation a 2-minute warning. If the delegation presentations are not focused on the application at hand, I'll ask the delegations to focus their presentations. If the committee members would like to propose an amendment to a motion moved and seconded or deferred, please indicate during the question comment period after the motion is on the table. When asked to vote on a motion, please indicate by yes if you are in favor of the motion on the floor, or no if you are not in favor of the motion on the floor. This will also help to check that we have maintained quorum throughout the meeting. I'll now introduce Matt Vaughn, Director of Planning, to provide the following comments.
Thanks very much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 4th Committee of Adjustment during the COVID-19 state of emergency pandemic. The purpose of the Committee of Adjustment meeting is to give consideration to minor variance and severance applications. Due to the constraints of the pandemic, rather than having a meeting in the council chambers, this virtual meeting will act as a statutory meeting, Committee of Adjustment planning applications. Meeting materials were posted to our website last week, along with a report which provides staff's professional planning opinion on the merits of each application. If the committee deems it appropriate, they will render a decision tonight. Decisions of the Committee on Planning Act matters can be appealed to the local planning appeals tribunal once notice of the decision has been rendered. The planner will provide a quick overview of the planning application, including any public input, and then provide the recommendation. The committee will have an opportunity to ask the planner questions on the application before voting on a decision. On the telephone this evening, we have the appropriate staff, myself, Director of Planning, Matt Vaughn, Planner Amanda Wazinski, and Planner Dan Mizniak to assist the committee. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Matt. I'll now call each member, and please indicate by stating present if you are in attendance. Mary Jane Brown, present. Harry Emmett.
Present.
Bob Hamilton.
Present.
Daniel Zuloff. Daniel. It appears, could you be on mute? We've lost your, we'll note that you are speaking, so I'll move on that you are present. Rebecca Smith.
Present.
Steve Schmidt.
Present.
John Vamus.
Present.
I'll note that minor application, variance application A1020AW 190 River Road has been pulled from the agenda as the public notice sign was not posted 10 days ahead of the meeting, thus not meeting Planning Act requirements. I'll now introduce approval of agenda, and I will turn it over to Member Emma for the motion.
It's moved by myself and seconded by Member Smith that the agenda for the County of Brant Committee of Adjustment meeting of October the 15th, 2020 be approved.
Thank you, Member Emmett. Are there any members that have any items to be added to the agenda? It appears there are none. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
He's not a P there yet.
it appears he's not there. We will move on to member Vamus,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has been carried and we now have an approval of our agenda. I will now move to item 3, declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll ask any member if they have any interest to indicate by stating their name and the application number. It appears there are none. So I will now introduce item 4, adoption of minutes from previous meeting, and I will turn it over to member Hamilton for the motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by member Smith that the minutes from the County of Brant Committee of Adjustment meeting of September the 17th, 2020 be approved.
Thank you, member Hamilton. Are there any further items we need to add? I'll ask the members. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
and I still do not see member Zuloff. Member Vamus,
Yes.
member Smith,
Yes.
member Schmidt,
Yes.
and Brown, yes. The motion to adopt the minutes from the previous meeting has been passed. We will now move on to item 6A, and it is application A1620DN for staff report CA 2050 from JH Cahoon Engineering on behalf of 1140506 Ontario Inc., care of Darshan Atwal, 1744 Colburn Street West, and I will turn it over to Dan Nemisniak for the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, committee members. This minor variance application has been received for the lands located at 1744 Colburn Street East, otherwise known as the Brantford Mushroom Farm. This application is required to recognize zoning deficiencies that are associated with an existing enclosed canopy structure that is located at the rear of the property. Approval of this minor variance application will bring this structure into compliance with the zoning bylaw. So this application requests the following relief of the zoning bylaw. Relief to permit a minimum rear yard setback of 7 meters, whereas 15 meters is required, and relief of the zoning bylaw to permit a maximum lot coverage of 28% for agricultural uses and a maximum lot coverage of 12% for all other uses for a total of 40%, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 22% for agricultural uses and 18% for all the other uses, again totaling 40%, is permitted. A condition has been added, has been included with the staff recommendation that requires the applicant and owner to receive a building permit for this enclosed structure and satisfy all requirements as part of the building permit process. This condition is included because a permit was issued for the open canopy structure at the time of construction only. A permit could not be issued for the enclosed structure because it does not currently comply with required zoning setbacks and coverage. Staff acknowledge that a number of historical and ongoing concerns have been identified on the subject lands, some of which are not planning related and not identified in the staff report. Planning staff are of the opinion that this minor variance application should be reviewed independently of any concerns not noted as part of this application. The intention of this minor variance application is to bring known deficiencies into compliance with the zoning bylaw and is therefore a step in the right direction. Based on the comments received and review of applicable planning policy, planning staff are of the opinion that the application does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance as outlined in the report. the uses on the property are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan, and this application intends to bring the subject lands into conformity with the development standards of the agricultural and site-specific 46 zone. Planning staff recommend that the minor variance application be approved, subject to the condition included. I will note that public comments received as part of the circulation of this application have been included in the staff report and as part of the addendum circulated to the committee ahead of this meeting, and that some individuals are present this evening to speak further to those comments. I will also note that based on the review of the public comments received, the applicants and agent have made the formal request to defer the application 1 month to the November 19th meeting date, will allow for additional time to provide input and response to this minor variance application. The applicant agent are also present this evening and can speak further to this deferral request. So with that being said, happy to ask or answer any questions that the committee may have at this time.
Thank you, Dan, for your presentation. At this point, I will ask the Committee of Adjustment if you're prepared to defer the application to another meeting cycle. I'd like your thoughts, and if so, please make a motion. Are there any members who would like to give some input on the applicant's request to defer?
Member Schmidt, I would make a motion to defer to the next meeting.
Thank you, Member Schmidt. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Mr. Zuloff is the second on it. I will now ask the committee to indicate if you would are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Zamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has been approved and the application will now be deferred for 1 month meeting cycle to November 19th. With that approval of the motion, we will not have any presentations from the delegates who are attending tonight. And I would advise that you should be available for the November 19th, should you wish to do a presentation then. We will now move on to item 6B on the agenda, staff report CA 2049 for application B5320DN Labella Homes, number 3 and 5 Dundas Street, and I will turn it over to Dan Nemisniak for the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Consent application B3520-DN requests for a decision on a consent application to facilitate the severance of a semi-detached dwelling into conveyable lots known as 3 and 5 Hawk Street. The semi-detached dwelling is currently under construction with building permits issued on August 31st. Each lot is proposed to have a minimum frontage of 9 meters and lot area of 330 square meters. In support of the proposal, the applicant has provided a detailed site plan, a grading plan, a planning justification, which outline consistency, conformity, and compliance with applicable planning policy. So these subject lands were previously part of consent application B1818DN and minor variance application, previous minor variance application, which did facilitate the severance of the existing dwelling at 85 Main Street and the creation of one lot at 1 Hawk Street, which has been developed with a single detached dwelling. As part of that application, detailed site engineering design and planning justification was provided with that application and reviewed holistically with the intention of future development and severance of a semi-detached dwelling that we are dealing with today at 3 and 5 Hawk Street. Based on the comments received and planning analysis outlined in the staff report, planning staff recommends that this consent application be approved.
Thank you, Dan, for the presentation. I will now ask if the applicant or their agent is present.
Yes, I am present.
I will note that Peter Ligori is present, and I'll ask you to give your presentation now, please.
I actually don't have much to add on top of what Dan has already said. We went through a minor variance for the first severance last year. At that point, we did detail the entire plan that we had for approval, and now we are on the second part for completing this site development.
Thank you, Mr. Ligori. Are there any questions from the committee on that to the applicant? It appears there are none. I'll now ask, are there any public delegations wishing to speak to this application? Again, it appears there are none. So are there any questions or issues requiring clarification by the members of the committee? It appears there are none. So I will now turn it over to Member Vamus for the recommendation.
Moved by myself and second by Member Emmett that application B 53-20-DN from Lubella Homes, 3-5 Hawk Street, former township of South Dumfries, be approved as outlined in staff report CA-20-49.
Thank you. I'll now ask the committee, each member, if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
and Brown, yes. The motion has been approved by the committee, and the application has been approved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We will now move on to item 6C on the agenda, staff report CA 2048 for application A1820AW, B4920AW, and B5020AW. J.H. Cahoon Engineering on behalf of Young Brothers Farms Limited, care of Brenda Ryder, 365 Robinson Road. And I will now turn it over to Amanda Wazinski for the presentation.
Thank you, through the chair. The applicants are seeking to sever two new rural residential lots with areas of approximately 0.71 hectares and 0.72 hectares. In order to facilitate the severances, they are also seeking a minor variance on the retained lands to recognize an undersized farm parcel. Staff note only the lands to be severed have been rezoned to rural residential to be aligned with the official plan. Staff are supportive of the minor variance and severance applications as it would represent a logical development on Robinson Road. The applicant submitted MDS calculations and the severed lots will be in compliance with MDS. One public comment was received opposing the application due to environmental concerns. Staff have clarified this comment with the commenting person and noted that the lands to be severed are not within the GRC regulation area and are not designated or zoned natural heritage. Staff are recommending approval of the minor variance and severance applications and can answer any questions the committee members may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, for the presentation. I will now ask if the applicant or their agent is present.
Madam Chair, Rob Van Porten, J.H. Cahoon Engineering Limited.
Thank you. I will ask you to give your presentation now.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. As pointed out by the planner, the application involves the creation of 2 residential lots on the north side of Robinson Road. The lots will have an area of approximately, each lot will have an area of approximately 0.7 hectares and range in width between 45 and 48 meters, and will in fact complete the residential component within the north side of Robinson Road, east of Cleaver, and could be considered a rounding out of the development of the subject lands. As pointed out by the planner, the property is designated rural residential and recently, by separate application, rezoned to rural residential. Both lots far exceed the minimum requirement of the zoning bylaw and are of a size that are consistent with other lots that were created in the past on the north side of Robinson Road. The retained 2.8 hectare farm is designated agricultural and zoned agricultural and will continue to be used for that purpose. As pointed out, we did do an MDS study, and because there was a horse operation to the north, we did do an MDS calculation, and certainly the proposed lots are not affected by that livestock operation. We read the report and the conditions and fully explained the conditions to the applicant are in full agreement. Madam Chair, either myself or Bob Phillips can respond to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Van Porten. I'll ask if there are any public delegations, and if there are, could they please present now? I'll note there are no public delegations for this application, A1820, and I will ask the members of the committee if they have any questions or issues or comments they would like to make on this report.
Member Hamilton here.
Yes, please go ahead.
On the condition for the easterly lot on number 4, it had a 3-meter reserve because of the sight line. Is there going to be a joint driveway? This is probably put towards the council or the for that, or are they going to have 2 separate driveways because you've got that 0.3 meter reserve there? So just wondering exactly what was happening.
Through the chairman to the member, the restriction on the location of the entrance would still permit a separate entrance into that lot. And as such, the proposal is to have 2 separate entrances. They both comply with the county standards for the locations and sight lines in this instance.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll note that Mr. Phillips responded to Member Hamilton's question. Are there any further questions or comments from the committee on this application? Does staff wish to provide any further input?
Staff is fine.
It appears there's no further comments or questions, so I will now turn it over to Member Schmidt for the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. It is moved by myself and seconded by Member Hamilton that application A18-20-AW and B49-20-AW and B50-20-AW from JH Cahoon Engineering on behalf of the Young Brothers Farms Limited, care of Brenda Ryder, 365 Robinson Road, be approved as outlined in the staff report CA-20-48.
Thank you, Member Schmidt, for the motion. I'll now ask the members if you are in favor of this motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. It appears the motion has been approved. The application has been approved by the committee.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, members.
Thank you.
We will now move to item 6D on the agenda. Staff report CA 2047 for application B 5120 AW and B 5220 AW, 2720784 Ontario Limited, 56 Cedar Street, and I will turn it over to Amanda Wazinski for the presentation.
Thank you. Through the chair. The applicant is requesting to sever two residential building lots with areas of approximately 377 square meters and 470 square meters and frontages of approximately 12 and 11 meters along Cedar Street. The severed lands will need to be rezoned with a holding to prevent development, which has been a standard condition for recent severances along Cedar Street. Staff do note a grading plan has been added as a condition of approval, and the applicant has been made aware. One public comment was received which sought clarification on drainage, and staff had spoken with them and described how the applicant will be required to enter into site development agreement and provide a grading plan. Staff are recommending approval of the severance applications and can answer any questions the committee members may have.
Thank you, Amanda, for the report. I will ask if the applicant or their agent is present.
Madam Chair, I am.
Thank you. Can you provide your name and please start your presentation?
Yes. My name is Eric Salaslea. I'm a planner with GSP Group, and we're the planning consultants to the owner of 56 Cedar Street. On their behalf, we filed the applications for consent. We've reviewed the staff report, and also note, just as a question of clarification, I know that the conditions recommendations that were the recommended conditions that were posted on the agenda, I think there was a correction, and I'm just hoping that Amanda had forwarded to the committee.
Through the chair, the conditions have been updated to reflect that the holding will only be on the severed lands.
Okay, and then there was a modified condition number 4 that is more reflective of the actual comments that came from the real estate department. So I just want to make sure that those were forwarded to you, and those are the ones that are in front of you, committee.
Through the chair, the updated conditions will be circulated to the committee members prior to execution.
Okay. Okay, so what basically we reviewed the staff report with my client as well as the updated conditions, and they have no objections to those and are fully in support of the recommendation on the applications before the committee. And I'm here basically to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sorry.
Salaslea, it's okay.
I also had dental work done today. Thank you for the presentation. I will now ask if there are any public delegations.
Yes, Mark Spong.
Thank you. Can you provide your presentation now?
Yes, I can. I reside at 52 Cedar Street, right beside 56. And I had put in a small submission that concerned with rainwater management. Currently, during any kind of substantial rain or even out there today, our driveway floods because the water runs in from Cedar Street. But as it runs in, it pools, and it pools between the two properties, probably about half and half, and quite a huge pond happens out there. We do have on our side a private dry well that picks up some of it. But my concern is when we start grading and putting these residential homes in there, a couple things is the hardscape that's going to happen is the water's not going to run away. It's going to run somewhere and probably back to our property. And issue 2 is with all the water that we're receiving off of Cedar Street, because we're now at the lowest point with all the new houses going in there, the portion of water that would lay in 56 Cedar Street's land will now be forced into ours. And sometimes the water ponds enough that it's only, I say, 10 feet away from our garage. So that is a concern that this water gets managed. And I know part of it is when we look at doing Cedar Street, which I understand is next year. But again, by any kind of landscaping change or the changing of the property levels, that will force any water that used to go over into 56, which was quite a bit, because it used to pond right between us, or does pond between us, will force it over into our property. So we're going to end up with possibly a third to half more water on our property.
Thank you, Mr. Spong. I will ask staff and the applicant to respond to that.
Thank you, through the chair. One of the conditions of approval is a grading plan, which will ensure that all drainage for the property is contained on 56 Cedar and won't go onto your property. And then another condition of approval is a site plan agreement, which will again have address grading issues in there as well. And I'm not sure if the agent would like to add anything to that as well.
Yes, and I guess one of the other things too is the holding provision on the lands to be severed, the severed lots, that will require the design and of the grading plan as well as the construction of Cedar Street, and taking that into account too, which presumably the upgrades of Cedar Street will involve stormwater management as well. So looking at the overall, as Amanda has indicated, the condition requiring a grading plan, we'll look at that and look at the grading and stormwater management in terms of the direction of any anticipated flows and collection, and also presumably it would be accounted for in the Cedar Street reconstruction, which staff can comment on further if needed. Thank
you. Are there any further questions from you, Mr. Spong, on that?
Yes, the infrastructure upgrade on Cedar Street, are we still looking at next year? Because it is, when I say ponding, I mean it's heavy ponding. We can't use the end of our driveway when it rains, and it comes from both directions on Cedar Street and from across the road. And just, we are the lowest point right now on Cedar Street. There is no rainwater management except for our drywall. And some days, like say, we can't even use our driveway if it's raining enough.
Through the chair, it's my understanding that the Cedar Street is targeted for next year. I can confirm that with the lead engineer on the project for you and send you an email after the meeting just for your confirmation as well.
Okay.
And in regards to the design of Cedar Street, I do believe they are incorporating stormwater management techniques into that redesign as well. And
Okay.
then the holding provision won't be lifted off the severed lands until Cedar Street is in substantial completion, or at a certain point where we can start lifting those holding provisions as well.
Okay, yeah, if you could send me a confirmation of that, that would be great.
Yeah, I can do that for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Everyone. I'll ask, are there any further public delegations to this matter? It appears there are none. Are there any questions or comments by the committee members?
Member Hamilton here to the applicant. When is that house and garage going to be taken down? And if so, what would be done then to minimize that water going on to, the 54 from that perspective? And if you are going to take it down, can it have a pond on it to accumulate until the Cedar Street's done up? So just a question.
Through you, Madam Chair. My understanding in terms of speaking with my client, the applicant, is that he'd be looking at potentially taking down the building, within the next year and whatnot. But my understanding is that he has retained an engineer to look at the overall grading. And if he was applying for a building permit on the retained land, retained parcel. They could look at an overall grading plan for that through discussions with the county staff, and there might be an opportunity to look at those mitigation measures in the interim.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions?
Member Smith, just a question through the chair to staff. I just see that so that condition is being amended so that the holding provision only applies to those severed lots. I just want to be sure. So is there an existing service that will be available for that retained lot in the interim?
Through the chair, that's my understanding, that there is an existing service to that property. So when the retained lands are developed, they will connect into that existing service.
Okay, and engineering is okay with that holding provision only being applied to those severed lots?
Through the chair, engineering is aware of that holding provision and they have agreed with it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions? It appears there are none. I will now turn it over to Member Emmett for the recommendation.
Moved by myself and seconded by Member Vamus that application B51-20-AW and B52-20-AW from GSP Group on behalf of 2720784 Ontario Limited, 56 Cedar Street be approved as outlined in the staff report CA-20-47.
Thank you, Member Emmett. I will now ask the members to indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has been approved. The application has been approved. Thank you, members.
Thank you, committee.
We will move to item 7 on the agenda, other business, and I will ask Amanda if there has been any other business noted.
Through the chair, I just want to confirm that all the members received that confidential memo. And if they have any questions regarding that, just to send me an email. We can take those discussions offline just because it is confidential. And then in regards to any other additional business, it's just we're looking at a November 19th Committee of Adjustment meeting. Right now, there'll be approximately 5 to 6 applications on there right now, and it'll be in a similar format to this meeting as well.
Thank you, Amanda. With that, I'll note that our next meeting is in item 8, November 19th, as indicated by Amanda, and I will ask for a motion from the committee to adjourn the meeting.
Moved by myself and seconded by Member Emmett.
Thank you. I'll ask each member in turn if they are approving, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Brown, yes. The motion has been approved. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for attending.